Of the directors of curriculum at CIA, and a really great chef. Well, one of the things that happened in America was the James Beard Society. And in 1992, the first woman would get a James Beard Restaurant Award, and that was Alice Waters. Alice Waters started sort of American cuisine out in California, and she's actually one of my bosses today. She brought me to California to do what I do. But she was really, and Alice always, had this great restaurant, but she really was never the chef of the restaurant. Even in the 1990s, it was Jeremiah Tower and Paul Bertoli, and a lot of other people were the chefs. But Alice was the soul of the restaurant and really changed how young chefs in America thought about food. She brought us seasonal food, she brought us organic food, and she really changed the face of food in America. So even while there weren't that many chefs at the upper echelons of kitchens, women were really having their due. Another woman who really changed the face of how food was seen in America was Odessa Piper. She had a restaurant, L'Etoile, in Madison, Wisconsin, that only served food from her region. She was doing organic food, she was doing seasonal food. And these women had tremendous influence. They weren't executive chefs in restaurants, but they had tremendous influence. Nora Pouillon from Austria had the very first organic restaurant in America. There's only 3 today, but she had the very first certified organic restaurant. I think it's been 10 or 12 years now that it's been certified. And she came to America and said, the food in America is lousy. The food in Europe is better. We need to change that. We need to be more conscious of what the product is and what taste is. And then what we saw is these women chefs were pairing up with women farmers. This is Judith Redmond. She's the farmer for Full Belly Farm. She got started by pairing up with Alice Waters, and she was growing a lot of Alice's food. She now grows food for my schools. We buy in our schools directly from the farmers. We're doing those 8,200 meals a day in schools with a $1.50 food cost and cooking it all from scratch. And then these women went out and started pairing up with small producers. This is Sue Conley and Peggy Smith. And they started one of the premier cheese companies in America, Cowgirl Creamery. And they came up with a lot of really artisan cheeses. So we saw this collaboration. We saw inclusiveness. We saw women gathering women together to help move other women along. And I think that that was something that's really important. Barbara Trop, who's now deceased, started the only national women's culinary group in America, Women Chefs and Restaurateurs. I'm a past president of that organization. But Barbara, and it's 15 years old next year, Barbara thought we really need a way to empower women. We need organizations where women can help women. Because we all need to do that. And we see a great big group like this, and that's why I had the women stand up. You know, when you're looking around a room like this and less than 10% of the chefs are women, we got a problem. We got a problem with sustainability. We got a problem with profitability, because we're not going to be able to go on this way. So WCR was really started to help empower women. Joyce Goldstein was also one of the founders. One of the things Joyce Goldstein, she had Square One restaurant in San Francisco. She was really all about teaching and mentoring. One of the things that she said was so important was mentor people coming up behind you. And how many of us do that? When we look around, and Ferdinand said this the first day, when we look around, we're not all the same. How are we going to mentor people to come up behind us? How are we going to make sure that our restaurants and our businesses are sustainable because there's enough young people coming up who really understand? Mary Sue Milligan and Susan Feniger, Two Hot Tamales. They grew Mexican restaurants in Southern California and a TV show. When Mary Sue started, she couldn't get a job in a restaurant in Chicago. They kept trying to make her the hat check girl. Lydia Bastianich brought Italian food to America almost single-handedly. And she really changed the face of Italian food in America. She has many restaurants now, and she works with Mario Batali and a lot of the other male chefs in New York, and she's brought true traditional ingredients to American food and taught a whole lot of people about it. Sarah Moulton, and now we're starting to see the younger chefs. Sarah Moulton worked for Gourmet, and she was one of the first women on the TV Food Network and has continued to have TV shows and be a celebrity in her own right. She's also a graduate of CIA. And now we're seeing that, this next group of women are the younger women who are coming up, who have been executive chefs in hotels and restaurants, who are really demanding their place in the kitchens and their place in the culinary world. Melissa Kelly, another graduate of CIA, has one of the finest palates in America as far as I'm concerned, and she has a restaurant where she grows most of her own food, raises her own pigs, does her own butchery, and oh, by the way, has primo restaurants and JW Marriott's in America as well. So she's doing this really small, great restaurant and also working in hotels. We're seeing chefs do that. Sherry Yad is the corporate pastry chef for all of Spago's. In Spago, Beverly Hills, her pastry station has a hotline where at night there's 5 people cooking on the hotline in the pastry station, besides that she's in charge of pastry for the thousands and thousands and thousands of meals that Spago Catering does. And food and wine. What would we be without food and wine? We're now seeing a lot of female winemakers, Helen Turley, Gina Gallo, and a lot of these female winemakers are producing phenomenal wine. They have great palates, and they're pairing up with women. And this inclusiveness, and this idea that we all need to work together. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that I think is so important. Our industry in America is going to need 300,000 more cooks in the next decade. 300,000 in America. Where are we going to get them if we're not supporting everyone coming into this business? We need to get the best and the brightest. We need to be inclusive. We need to bring everyone to the table. We can't just bring people who look like us, who think like us. It would be a very, very bland world. In America, 56% of all restaurant employees are women. And we heard this morning Diana talk about some statistics. Her and mine are slightly off. Not exactly the same, but they're really close. Most of those employees are not at the high end. Most of those employees have line-level jobs. We're seeing 35% of culinary schools across the country are women. When I graduated from CIA, there was a class of 72. There was myself and 2 other women. And at that point, there were no female culinary instructors. That's crazy. But today, of course, that's all changing, including pastry. There's 50% women in culinary schools. But still, most culinary schools have less than 20% female culinary instructors. So that, of course, should change. 59% of food service supervisors are women, but many of them are managers or front of the house. Again, we don't see a lot of sous chefs. My kitchens that have mostly female sous chefs are an anomaly. And it's not because I go out and try and find female sous chefs. I'm looking for the best and the brightest. It's because often women want to work for women, especially when they're young and coming up. That's why we need to be mentoring them. That's why we need more women at the top. So my figures say there's 21% of women chefs, and heads of kitchens in America. But that's still such a minority, 21%. And most of them are where they own it. There's very few women at the top of hotels. The Four Seasons hotel chain has 1 female in America at the top at an executive chef level. So when we think about this, we think about how can we change it? How can we be really inclusive? How can we have an industry that's balanced? I mean, many women have told me, and when I write about this, they'll say, but you know what? I can't be a chef and be a mom. Well, you know what? We have to have an industry where you can be a chef and be a parent. It's not yet just you can be a chef when you have a wife. It's got to be you can be a chef when you can have a life. Because otherwise, we're not going to get the next generation to come up behind us. We need to be diverse. It can't matter what color you are, how old you are, what gender you are, what your sexual preference is. It can't matter. It has to matter that you're passionate, that you care, that you like to cook, that food is exciting. That's what matters. And our industry has to change. We have to start thinking about triple bottom line. People, profit, planet. Because you know what? When it's all about profit, we're going nowhere. We've got a world that's deteriorating. 10,000 dead in China in the last couple days. 37,000 in Myanmar. You know what? The world is changing. We can't keep abusing it. And we can't keep abusing employees. 100-hour weeks